Hello there, Star Wars toy fans. This is Jim. Thanks again for taking the time to stop by my channel. Welcome all the new folks who have just began subscribing, and thanks again for the vintage guys for taking the time to watch the videos. And just a shout out to all you new guys that are new to the channel. Hopefully you liked the video well enough that you will want to subscribe. Well, this video topic is how do I store my loose action figures, and it comes at the request of one of the fans of the channel who goes by RavenMax. And to show you all the display cases, I had to actually go to my garage, and I'm kind of crammed in here because right next to me is a 1927 Model T that's made in Canada. And if you'd like to know more about that, just let me know in the chat box, and I'd be happy to do a separate video on the Model T. Canadian Ts are a little bit different than those that were manufactured here in the United States. In fact, Canadian Model Ts are about the same like Australian and those in the UK. Well, anyway, this is how I store my loose figures, and they are all in, of course, collector cases. Some vintage, some new. I'm missing one, and that is the C3PO non-talking collector case that came out in 2004. But other than that, I think it's pretty well complete as far as the different styles go. I have three from my childhood, and I've done a whole separate video on the collector cases that I will try to leave in the link description below. So I thought first I would show you my first collector case and how those figures look inside, and then that's how I kind of base the rest of them. So here's my childhood case with my childhood figures. Han Solo happens to be here, and then Luke Skywalker, Leia, and that's kind of the order that I have them in many of my other collector cases, as you'll see very soon. And then here's the second tier, and this used to be a spot for a Jawa, but when I picked up the blue Snaggletooth, he ended up going in this case, and the Jawas got crammed together. I don't like doubling, but this really was these were all my original figures from when I was a kid. That was something that I acquired as an adult, but he really needed to go in this case as he fits that scenario. Then each one of the other cases has various themes to them. So this happens to be the one that was produced in Canada, so it's got the French lettering. And in this case here, I happen to have modern Hasbro figures that are pretty much those from Star Wars, and mostly Jawas and the droids associated with Tatooine and the Sandcrawler. Now this case is the what we call the transition case between Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, and then this one is pretty much my loose figures that I have from the Kenner line. So just strictly loose. Some of them have weapons, some don't, but that's pretty much it. Some are customs, like this is a Theron Net custom that I made, but otherwise that's what this case is for. Now we'll move to the Yoda collector case from The Empire Strikes Back, and then this is where I keep my Hasbro Empire Strikes Back figures. And in some cases I have weapons and such with the figures if they won't get lost in the case, but otherwise it's the weapons are kept in those little blue cases that came with the Chewbacca belt. So you'll notice that I've got the theme here. So there's Han Solo, there's Luke, there's Leia, there's Chewie. There wasn't a Darth Vader in this set, but I pretty much try to follow the same theme as I go through the figures. Now this Yoda case is not in quite as good a shape as the other one, and this was actually the first one I picked up, and then I got one that was in much better condition. And this is my Mandalorian and my retro collector case, as well as that for the Obi-Wan series. So you see Darth Vader's in the same spot. IG-88 takes the place of Chewbacca. Boba Fett's in the same spot. So again, I just try to keep kind of the same ideas. There's our Mandalorian, there's kind of our two good guys, there's the female figure, there's the Death Trooper. So I keep the Stormtroopers in the same place. And then looking at tray number 2, we happen to have here Death Troopers in the same place. Obi-Wan's in the same place as he is here. It's just kind of the way I like to do things. I keep a consistent idea going throughout the cases. This is what I call the Wampa case. So this happens to be my Hasbro figures from Return of the Jedi. And in this case, because the red plastic tends to leach onto the figures, what I've done here is I put a plastic backing. And I have created some labels for them, like here's Torin Far. This was just sort of my test one, and I may end up redoing this and trying to get red labels. For right now, I just have the figures labeled with that. There's a site called Online Labels where you can buy labels that are 1.5 by 1/2 inch. That's pretty much their standard size. So it's a little bit larger than what you see in this case. But again, same thing. We have our astromech droid, Han Solo, Luke, Leia. He's not a stormtrooper, but you get the idea. And then we have our droids here in that area. And then the second tier, I'm not quite filled out yet, but that's the remainder of my Hoth set. Now, with Return of the Jedi, this actually is the finishing ones from Return of the Jedi, the vintage figures, as well as those from Stan Solo. You'll see there we've got Han and Stormtrooper. That's this one. This is a Stan Solo figure. And then Luke and Stormtrooper, Leia. And again, with the red backing, I just used bubble wrap, cut it to fit. And this is where I made some custom orange labels there. And then the back side, this kind of simulates where Luke Skywalker in the X-Wing pilot is. Now we'll take a look over here at the Darth Vader cases. Now with the 4 Darth Vader cases, this one is a little bit shorter, and this is actually the Bend-ems case, but it makes a great case for our Star Wars action figures. And these are my Imperial Hoth guys. So you notice I had one that was Rebel. These are the Imperial ones, as well as Shadow of the Empire, and then a few extra from like the Minot Hut and so forth. Here I can keep some of the larger figures like FX7, whereas he won't fit in any other collector case. And this one, you know, it's even though it's meant for the Bend-ems, it works wonderfully for the Hasbro action figures of all sizes. And then you have this little area here to store weapons, and so that's also really wonderful. Now the remainder of the cases, I have kind of a basic theme as well. And it all starts with my childhood one here. This is my childhood Darth Vader case from 1980. And I know because the cat chewed this thing. I tried to fix it, and it never quite worked. I have turned this into the Cantina because I wanted to keep my vintage figures in a much nicer case. I picked up a different one. So in all these labels, they probably should be black, but I just did white at the time because I didn't want to use up a lot of black ink in my printer. Each one of these has labels. There's all 5 Cantina band members. Then I keep their weapons right inside there. This is my replacement for my childhood figure, and I actually traded a set of X-Wing instructions from a friend from one of these. Okay, so looking here, you can see I've got pretty much my good guys up here, and then more or less the Empire figures, and then the bounty hunters, and then let's see, there's, of course, opposite here, and this is something I'd planned as a kid. I had Bespin guards, I had Hoth stormtroopers, I had rebel troopers across from each other. And here I keep their weapons, and the real small ones I just keep in a real small baggie, so that way I don't lose them, because this door never really likes to stay totally shut. Fortunately, I've never really lost any weapons. I've never had them fall out of this when it's closed, but the figures pop out all the time. The other Darth Vader case is based similarly to this, and that's the one that came out in 2002, I think it was. So we'll open that up. So just due to my selection of Hasbro figures, I did this one a little bit differently. So I have the X-Wing pilots there, pretty much the heroes down below. I have quite a few sand troopers, so they're all there. The Han and Luke in Stormtrooper disguise, and then kind of the Imperials up in that area. And then the weapons are also stored within that little compartment. The backpacks and things and large pieces are like this pole here. I just drilled a hole through that, and so that way I could store that easily. I think that goes with the Sand Trooper. Now with my C3PO collector case, I noticed, this is the one from my childhood, I noticed that the figures were getting some undue wear against the plastic here. So what I did is, again, I just used some bubble wrap and put them on the backdrop. And what's nice, as opposed to, say, the vinyl collector case, is that you can still see who's supposed to go where. I have the larger weapons stored in here, and then in the case like in Leia Bouche, it's just stored right with her. The smaller weapons, I've got one of those blue gun weapons cases, for lack of a better term. And here's kind of the whole view. I guess I had this side cut off, but yeah, the smaller places I've got for the Ewoks. For the stickers that did not come with the collector case, you'll notice here's a larger size, here's a smaller size, and this really is more the size that you would get if you were to order them from online labels. These are done by Zach Paris, and I've referenced his stickers quite a bit. They're much smaller in size, but he's got all the figures, so that way you can complete your collector case with the proper colors if that's something you want to do. Here is the Hasbro C3PO collector case, and with this one, I've got similar layout to what's in here, except that I altered a few things by making all the Leias in a row. The Luke's are kind of spread throughout. Han Solo's in a similar spot. I got the Emperor and his dignitaries there, the skiff guards in that area. And then some of the larger figures, like Luke with the Jedi at Night, he couldn't go in the spot that's normally here. He had to go in this spot. So it's just kind of the way it is. There were 2 additional spots over here where that sound box is. I created out of plastic a strap. And so I ended up JB welding a little copper tube there. That's the right diameter to go in the hole. And then cut it to shape, spray painted it black, and then put stickers on there. And unless you look really closely, you wouldn't know that it was custom made. But then I could add 2 more figures to the end. So here's the Millennium Falcon case, and this is pretty much my Return of the Jedi figures, with the exception of Muftak. So if you have this case, you know that there should be this bar going clear across here. And I ended up taking the Dremel and cutting it out entirely, and then sanding that down, because I didn't have a collector case that fit this guy. I mean, he's absolutely huge. So I figured, well, this case will do just as well, because one of the pegs on these straps had gotten damaged by my daughter when she was little. She pulled it out and broke the peg off, and I'm like, okay, that's damaged. I'm just going to customize this so that way I can fit my figures in. So other than him, everything else is from Hasbro Return of the Jedi, and I guess the female Tusken Raider is not from Return of the Jedi, but I wanted that figure to go with my other Tusken Raiders. And then I keep their weapons here in a little baggie, and that just goes right in the canopy. Now, the only other case that I don't have displayed, the laser rifle, well, I guess I have the R2-D2. The R2-D2 case I keep Robin Hood figures in, and the laser rifle case I don't keep anything in. It doesn't stack normally, and you have to have very thin figures like the size of Han Solo or Luke Skywalker from Star Wars in order to get them to fit. Nothing from Return of the Jedi that's larger like Gamorrean Guard will fit in many of the trays. And so it just sits empty, and that's fine. I have other cases to make things work. Thanks for taking the time to watch the video. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it, you found it worthwhile, and if you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe. Take care, and we'll see you on a future video.